too bad somebody didn't pick that up.
Wow.
Huh?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
And they don't
Let me give you
want,
the light here in just a second.
they don't want us to do that.
Ron?
They don't want us to do that. I call the order the March 6th council meeting to order, and I would ask that you would stand with me in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Councilor Roy?
Here.
Councilor Holbrook? Here. Councilor Sullivan?
Here.
Councilor St. Clair?
Here.
Councilor Blaze?
Here.
Councilor Benedict? Here. Chairman Alquist.
Here. Next is our general public comments. It's the opportunity for you to come up to the mic, state your address and what your issue is, and we'll give you 3 minutes. We'll kind of give you a heads up when you have a half a minute to go. So you can speak on any issue you want. Just step right up to the microphone and
State your name and address.
state your name and address, please. 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Sharman Kivatiski. I live at 386 Black Point Road. I'm here to address the council's interest in historic preservation. I read the story in the Current last week, and I think you guys are a day late and a dollar short. I have been on this subject for years, trying to get people to pay attention. I first, when I lived at Higgins for 9 years, and now the last 4 years, my husband and I purchased a 1790 house on Black Point Road, which we restored. Since then, in 2 years' time, two 1700s houses in our neck of the woods have been demolished. There's no outcry, there's no stopgap, safety measures to preserve these houses. I went to the former town manager, I pleaded with him, I said, something's got to be done. He kind of brushed it off and said, well, maybe it's a planning board issue or something. I went to the fire chief, and because many of these houses were just given to the town for fire training. And again, there was just no interest. I started hearing through the grapevine of houses that were being demolished or were scheduled for demolition. There was one developer in town who shall remain nameless, who had a house, the old Scarborough poorhouse, 1700s house. I called this person up. I pleaded with him, please don't. No, it was demolished. There's nothing there to save, this person said. I was really shocked when Scarborough had its 350th celebration to see this person's name on the committee to celebrate this historical town. And this person was demolishing these old houses. So I approached everybody I could think of to stop this, but I just think there's nothing left. There's no early houses left that I really thought that Scarborough maybe could have purchased these houses or from owners that were going to burn them and take them to the land that Scarborough has in back of the high school where the bandstand is. It seems to be a large amount of land there, and preserve maybe 3 or 4 of them for the public to see. I think the town has enough money to do that, but we have a lot of money for ballparks that aren't being used currently. So, but I don't know if there's anything left. I think we may have a few Victorians that may be available that can be saved, but as for early houses, I just think it's ironic that Scarborough is celebrated its 350th with all the gala and everything, with one house to show for it, and that's the Honeywell house that I know of, that's available for the public to see and appreciate. So if there's any measures that you can take to have the people who are giving their houses to the fire department or getting permits for demolition, I wish somebody could look at this and just see what the value of these houses are, to give the public an opportunity to deconstruct these houses and move them or buy them or something. Our precious history, most of it, unfortunately, has been lost.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak? Step right up. State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Holly Deary, and I live at 12 Equestrian Way. And I'd like to just take a second to ask folks, if you're here because of the rezoning in our neighborhood, if you could just raise your hand so we can kind of get a feel for the number of folks that are here.
Yeah.
Just would like to respectfully ask the council to take a better look at this zoning change. I'm not sure due diligence has been done and that we've, as a town, really looked at how this will impact the traffic. As you may know, if you live in that area, Dunston is already a very problematic area when it comes to traffic. And are we really doing, the best by our area to add, a real dense amount of new residences, more cars? And it's not just the people that live there, it's the mail truck, the oil truck, the UPS truck, the FedEx truck, and all that kind of stuff. And we're under construction right now. It's, if you're there anytime between, June, July, August, September, October, it's pretty bad. And it just doesn't seem I have had no communication about what was going on other than from neighbors and friends about this whole thing. And it just kind of feels like, gosh, to have goodwill here amongst you folks who represent all of us and all of us who pay taxes, as I'm sure you all do, let's be neighborly. Let's ask each other, what do you think about this? And how will this impact you folks? And I'm sure nobody's intentionally trying to set up this adversarial relationship between the council and the taxpayers. And I'm sure that the Risberas don't want to do that either. They're good citizens of this town, and I went to school with some of those guys, and they're really great people. So I'm sure they don't want to upset all these people either. So I just wish we could talk more about it and really look at the impact, and that we could all know that somebody's really researched this before we just, it was zoned residential for a reason. What's changed now that reason doesn't exist anymore? I guess that's what I don't understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, name and your address, please.
Katie Fellows, 36 Orchard Street. I'm just going to quickly read the basic text of a letter I sent last week to the 4 council members who supported the Dunstan Corner zoning change. Special thanks to Councilor Benedict, who took the time to respond to my email. I'm here to express my disappointment with the Scarborough Town Council's support of the zoning change in Dunstan Corner approved on February 20th. The consideration given that evening to this issue, for which many residents turned out despite the fact that the meeting was held in the middle of February school vacation week, was cursory and disappointing, and it was, at times, even misinformed. For example, the proposed zoning change was not proposed by the town's long-range planning committee, but was requested by the developer so that it could pursue its build-out goals. The long-range planning committee supported the change primarily because of a desire to avoid having parcels split into multiple zoning designations. As I and others have argued, it seems more logical to address that concern by making the parcel all residential, which is what the majority of the lot was, rather than to TVC. This would still have left substantial TVC frontage along Route 1, while avoiding an inappropriate encroachment of this high-intensity zone deep into a well-established residential area. Also, the planning board did not approve the proposed change, but voiced its disapproval by a 4-2 margin, sending a negative advisory opinion to the town council in January. The fact that the council's only public mention of this opinion that evening was inaccurate is troubling. Why bother putting the planning board through the motions of making advisory opinions? Now that the zoning has been changed, the broad parameters of any development, notably permitted uses, density, height provisions, have been established. It is important to note that the uses permitted under TVZ go far beyond the multifamily housing concept discussed during this process. These include retail stores, restaurants, offices, health clubs, funeral homes, churches, and daycare facilities. The planning board can work around the edges to try and ensure that any project built there is a good neighbor, but if the past is any guide, the board is unlikely to reject a proposal outright unless there is a clear and pressing public safety concern. Neighbors should absolutely be able to make assumptions about whether or how the land near them might one day be developed. As was pointed out by my neighbor who bought her land and built a home on Orchard 20 years ago, residents who did their homework before buying in an area saw that the land was zoned residential, and I firmly believe, and the majority of the planning board agrees, that these residents had a reasonable expectation that the rules would not change dramatically decades later in order to accommodate a radically different development objective. To me, as well as Councilor Blaze, it is counterintuitive to defer to the interest of a real estate developer and builder and a group of future as yet unknown users of whatever development ends up there, as opposed to the existing landowners and voters in the residential neighborhood in question. The council chose to kick this can back down the hallway to the same planning board that opposed this change, and which will now be tasked with trying to mitigate the effects on the numerous existing residential properties affected by this vote, but you can still change your mind and move to reconsider this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Nate Govio, live on 18 Orchard Street. So once again, I'm opposed to this. I know you guys have already voted on it for the approval, and I just don't think due diligence was done. I think it was done very quickly. That's why we're asking to relook at this. I know I personally knocked on a lot of people's doors throughout the neighborhood on Pine Point Road, abutting properties, and I've sat in some of these meetings. And looking at the pictures that they showed when they, showed the site and how they were going to do it, and looking back on it, really didn't reflect the neighborhood as a whole, because, none of the image, I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure, you know Scarborough, obviously, but have been through that area. But, I mean, all those houses abut all this property that's going on. It's in everyone's backyard. And there's already been, you know, they're already doing development right there in Orchard Street right now. And, you know, we pump gas on Route 1 now. And I look at my neighbor's house, which, you know, which is across the street on the corner of Surrey Lane and Orchard, and which you would never see before. So, I mean, already it's not a conscious development going in there right now by Risbera, because, you know, you shouldn't be able to see Route 1 from that neighborhood where it was. So it's not done very well. And I do feel trapped a little bit, you know, where we are. I mean, basically, if these apartment buildings actually end up behind our house, I mean, really, you guys are saying that, you know, I think all of our property values are going to go down on that street, or you kind of feel trapped where we're going to have a hard time if we ever wanted to sell that house now. Anyone who wants to move in, I think it's going to be much harder to sell at that point. So I feel, you know, basically you guys are trapping us in our houses for, you know, a long time. And the person who actually owns Griffin's Road, or street, it's that private road, you know, talking to him he lives on 4 Griffin Road. His name is Dan DiBiase. Mrs. Roy actually sold that road to him and he did have access. I guess there is a right-of-way through that road which they could use or for development, and he sold it as obviously an R2, R3 development. But I mean, he had no knowledge of any of this really going on. I don't think people actually talked and spoke to him, and all these projects are literally going right behind his house. I mean, that road, I mean, if you're talking 60, 80 cars are really going to go through his front yard, and everyone on that road, it's going to be right through their front yard. And I guess in the last meeting, they actually said there was apartments and stuff on that road, but there's actually, it's all residential on that road. They're all actually single-family homes except one, which has the 3 apartments in it. So I guess there was some misspeaking about that also. So I just don't think, you know, it was really presented very well to begin with. I think it was fast-tracked through. And I just hope we can reconsider, or at least look at it and get a better vote. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Paula Doe. I live at 6 Surrey Lane. I'm just going to read from the card that I'm in. Approximately 9 years ago, my family was transferred to Scarborough, Maine, and we began looking for a home and stumbled upon a house in a quaint little neighborhood tucked between Route 1 and Pine Point Road. I would soon learn that Dunston would be my new home, the perfect family home, close to everything, yet still nestled in an established neighborhood with sidewalks, tall pines, and the biggest mosquitoes a girl from Massachusetts has ever seen. I am here tonight to ask you to reconsider the zone change recently approved. This zone change does little to support Dunston or Scarborough's long-range development plans. I would encourage you to support the Planning Board recommendation. I would ask you to consider other properties in this same area that are already appropriately zoned for that use and will meet the needs of the expanding town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else? It's your opportunity. If you want to speak about anything, it doesn't have to be about that subject, anything. Step right up.
My name is Morris Harmon. I live at 15 Orchard Street in Scarborough. And I am respectful of our developer.
Speak into the mic, please.
Sure.
Thanks.
Respectful of the developer, which is a citizen and well-known in Scarborough, Dr. Roy, who was the owner of the property before. But I just want to speak for my neighbors that we keep hearing the middle class is being hurt in America. And Orchard Street is a great little neighborhood. And if you reconsider the zoning, I'm not so sure these apartments are the best thing to put there. And we say that respectfully. And if you look at the homes and the view that they have now, I think it's really wise to consider that for the people that live there. And that is said respectfully, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak? Yes, Jackie.
Resolution be
Yeah,
open.
right at the mic.
I just want to know if the resolution will be open to public discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak on this matter? Going once, going twice. I'll close the public comment. Next item.
is approval of the February 20th minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Second. Any corrections, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, it's a vote. Next item, adjustments to the agenda. You see none? Next item, item 7, warrants to be signed. We'll do that through the meeting. And next item.
Order number 1304 is a 7 p.m. public hearing on the proposed amendments to Chapter 405, the Town of Scarborough zoning ordinance to establish a light industrial district and a rural farm, and a rural and farming overlay district.
Dan Bacon, our town planner, you're up. Will you explain to us a little bit about this item, please?
Absolutely. Just going to quickly set up a PowerPoint to show a map of the area, which might take a sec. And as we wait for the map to load, again, I'm Dan Bacon, Town Planner. And I'm here on behalf of the Long Range Planning Committee. It's the committee that's been working on both crafting and recommending the zoning changes to you. There's 2 different orders that are before you for public hearing. They're interrelated. One is a zoning map change of the Holmes Road area. The other is 2 new zoning districts that relate to the zoning map change, a new light industrial district and a rural and farming overlay district, which I'll briefly explain. Again, this is your public hearing. We had a first reading back on February 6th, and at that evening I provided a pretty detailed, in-depth presentation. So tonight I'm going to provide a quicker overview, but we certainly get into more details if the public has questions or if you have questions. The map that's up on the screen and that you have in your packages generally shows the area that's being discussed for the zoning change. It's an area that's bordered by Holmes Road, the Maine Turnpike and Two Rod Road, and the orange line outlines this area. It's Beechwood Speedway is in this area, the town landfill, the former town landfill, Scarborough Auto Parts. There's a handful of homes in this area and a fair amount of undeveloped land. This is before you because in the town's comprehensive plan, as well as our economic development group, identified the town really has a lack of industrial zoned land. Our industrial areas and parks are essentially full. And there's a current and future demand and need for more industrial zoned area for future development. And as this slide illustrates, this is a map that shows the current zoning in this area, and it zooms in on the area. So at the top of the screen, Holmes Road traverses this map, and then you see Two Rod Road on the right side and the Maine Turnpike diagonally on the left side, and the Maine Turnpike on the right side. You also see exit 42 there and the Cabela's development in Ginn Road. So the area in question is currently zoned largely Business 2, which is a commercial zone. That's what's shown in red. And then there's an area that's currently rural and farming. So that's the current zoning in this area. The area was chosen in the comprehensive plan for future light industrial development because of the current commercial zoning out there, the nature of some of the uses, the speedway, an auto parts facility, the town landfill, as well as its location, close to Payne Road, close to access to the Maine Turnpike, etc., for more industrial type traffic and activity. This map shows the proposed change to the zoning map, and it changes the Business 2 zone as well as some of the rural zoning to this light industrial zone. So in the purple is the proposed light industrial district, and then you'll see the bottom third or half of this area also shows a proposed rural and farming overlay district. which I'll touch on in a minute. So this is the area that's proposed to be changed to light industrial with this overlay. And coupled with this map change, the two new districts are proposed to, again, allow light industrial type activities, but with a fair number of standards that are aimed at protecting the abutting neighborhood and the abutting residential properties, as well as some of the residential properties that are within the district. That's done through requirements for buffering. When industrial use abuts a residential use, it needs a 100-foot buffer that needs to remain wooded or vegetated. There's also requirements in terms of where industrial development has access. Only access is allowed for industrial activities to Holmes Road, so that Two Rod Road doesn't have new curb cuts, new traffic impacts coming out onto it, that it remains more residential in character. There's also provisions for, in this rural and farming overlay district, where the property owners can decide whether they want to become industrial zoned, be subject to the buffering requirements, be required to have access out to Holmes Road, which requires cooperation with the other properties in the district, or they can choose to remain zoned rural and farming, using the overlay so that they can remain residential properties, benefit from buffering from the industrial properties, and essentially not utilize the industrial zoning that's proposed here. So that's a quick overview of this proposal. Again, I provided a longer presentation on February 6th. I'm happy to provide more detail if the council has questions or the public.
Yeah, Dan, let me open the public hearing, okay? This is a public hearing, and we need to do that, so I'll open the public hearing on item 13-04. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on this matter that Dan just outlined? Anybody? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll schedule it for the second reading at the next council meeting,
March 20th, that's correct.
March 20th. Next item?
Order number 13-05 is a 7 p.m. public hearing on the proposed amendments to the Town of Scarborough official zoning map to update the zoning districts in the vicinity of Holmes Road and Two Rod Road to the light industrial district and the rural and farming overlay district.
Again, I'll turn it over to Dan before we open the public
You
hearing.
know, I touched on this item as well as part of the first presentation. So the first item was the zoning ordinance amendments. This item before you is the zoning map change. The only thing I would mention before your public hearing on this is there's also a planning board public hearing next Monday, just for the public's benefit and viewers' benefit, where the planning board will be discussing this item as well, prior to your second meeting.
Thank you. Hearing that, I'll open the public hearing on order number 13-5. Anybody from the public who would like to speak on this matter, please step up, state your name and address, please. Anybody? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll schedule for March 20th the second reading. Next item?
Resolution 13-01 is a resolve urging the Maine State Legislature to craft a biennial state budget that prevents a significant increase in property taxes. And we do have public.
Okay. This is a resolve that we're urging the Maine State Legislature in the state budget. So is there anybody, before we read it, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this matter? Yep. State your name and your address, please.
Good evening, I'm Jacqueline Perry. I reside at 215 Black Point Road. I am a member of the Board of Education, and I'm also a member of the board for the Maine School Boards Association. And I've always liked to play in my own backyard, but I have become involved with the state organization because of what is happening at the state level, and I just hope I can make a contribution there. Had a meeting on Saturday, and that's the reason I'm here, is to thank you for making this resolution and telling you that it will, I think, have wide support. Jim Raya, who is the finance person for the State Department of Education, spoke to the state board on Saturday, He gave us what he says is the latest figures on school funding, and at the present time, Scarborough will have $1,441,650 less from the state than we had to spend this year. There is also the calculated normal cost for teacher retirement, and if you've been reading the newspaper, it says that the town of Scarborough will have to pick up, as will other communities, the share that the state has been paying for teachers' retirement. And the figure calculated for Scarborough is $517,218. Now, the governor has said that he's going to put money back into the budget. In other words, $28 million is the figure for all contributions to Maine State Retirement. And the governor says they're going to put $14.5 back in. But I want to tell you this. It is Scarborough's not going to be paying half of $517,000. Scarborough's contribution is going to be based on our subsidy. So we are considered a low receiving district. And low receiving districts are going to have to make more of a contribution to the total retirement fund than are the higher receiving districts. So we don't know at the present time what that figure for Scarborough is going to be. So please, folks, keep it in mind. I thank you for bringing forth this resolution. I want to tell you that friends of mine were in Hamden last night, I think it was Monday evening, where 200 people from the surrounding area, legislators, school board members, public, town councilors, were there talking about this very thing. So again, thank you for this resolution, and you have my support, and I know the support of the school committee. You'll hear more about, I'm not on the finance committee, you'll hear more about it as we move forward with the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Yep, step right up.
Rachel Hendrickson, 2 Plantation Drive here in Scarborough. I also want to thank you for coming forth with this resolution. Since I brought the resolution to your attention at the last board meeting, council meeting, an additional 3 towns have now signed on to similar resolutions, bringing that total to 13 towns, and is being considered in another 40 to 45 towns. The resolution speaks with the voice of the whole town, and that's very important. As individuals, we can call our legislators, but when a whole town says we have to find a different way of doing things, they have to stop and listen. I appreciate what you've said in here about the need to seek balance, progressivity, and a comprehensive approach with respect to tax policy, as well as to take a look at alternative measures. The posturing up in Augusta around the budget needs to stop. The posturing needs to be replaced by a common sense collaboration. And as the voices of the towns, more and more of them come in, our legislators need to listen, and I believe they will listen. I have a request that if you do pass this resolution, as I certainly hope you do, not only do you send a copy of it up to the state legislature, but you also send individual copies to our 4 legislators here in Scarborough. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Jean Marie Caterina, and I live at 311 Gorham Road here in Scarborough, and I'm here to speak in favor of Town Council Resolution 1301. When I learned that Governor LePage was proposing to balance the state budget by suspending municipal revenue sharing and curtailing the homestead exemption and circuit breaker programs, I immediately thought of all of my Scarborough neighbors that I have come to know really well over the last year, and believe me, there are many of them. They live on fixed or low incomes in houses, in some cases, that have been in their families for years. And I thought about the immediate negative effect that this budget will have on their ability to keep their homes. And I thought about the contract or the promise that was made in the 1980s by the state to revenue share with municipalities in an effort to keep, to make the regressive nature of property taxes less onerous for those who are most vulnerable and our citizens. And I've decided to take action and speak up tonight. As you've heard from Jackie and Rachel, and there are others here too who may speak tonight, there are many other negative impacts. But we need to make sure as citizens of Scarborough that the governor and the legislature hear us when we say that this shall not be. And as our town councilors, I urge you to pass the resolution, to stand up and be counted, to say that there is a better way to balance our state budget than on the backs of the working people of the state, and that the legislature can and should get to work crafting a fair and progressive tax structure for the people of the state. And I also thank you very much for taking the time to bring this resolution up, and I do hope you pass it tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next.
And last but not least, I guess, I'm Susan Dyer Taylor. I live at 21 Clearview Drive. I not only am a resident of Scarborough, I am a state employee. And I'm also a teacher. I'm here to speak in favor of the resolution because I know as a state employee and a resident, I cannot afford any more than I've already been asked to pay. I have not had a raise in 6 years, more than 6 years. If you've followed many of the governor's proposals, you know that he's asking for many givebacks from the state employees who are already employed. I have no idea what my retirement's going to look like. I have spent my entire life as a teacher for Portland Public Schools, for the County of Cumberland, and now for the state at Long Creek Youth Development Center. I moved to Scarborough approximately 6 years ago, and I cannot imagine trying to hold on to my small property and not go through anguish, worrying about how I'm going to pay my taxes, how much more I can afford if, in fact, the Homestead Act is done away with. The money's not coming in. And so, as an employee of the state, if I don't have it to pay, how do I hope to support the municipality that I've chosen to live in? I would urge you to support this resolution. I'm not the only state employee who lives in Scarborough. We're not masked or anything like that. We're walking around in plain sight. We're not what some would like you to believe as making a whole lot of money and living high off that hog. That's not happening. We're stretching every dollar we get paid, and we don't know what the future will hold. So I urge you, please, support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody? Yeah, sure. Step right up to the mic, please. Your name and your address.
My name is Jane Lin, and I live on 11 Abigail Way. And I'm here to speak in regard to that resolution 1301. And I'm here want to speak on as a parent of the children that looking at the $1.44 million that we are going to lose by, because the governor's proposed budget. And I would like to remind the council, as a council, what we have been, the school budget remember a few events that has been happened in the past few years. And in 2010, we had a huge budget cut, and I remember we had discussion about music teacher, art teacher, special service. We had many positions cut and reduced the staff in the school system. That had a lot of impact on our on school. In the middle school, I know the kids are not really having Spanish or French. We are calling them 3 years because they don't have the staff to learn a new language instead of learning a new language. That's a very interesting aspect. And another thing is the budget was so tight. In 2011, we had the activity fee that was imposed, and that brought us about $150,000 a year just for that activity fee. And there was a lot. I'm sure a lot of you in town have remembered that was a big event, big discussion. And last year we also have the parking fee charged at the high school, and that thing brought $50,000 for the whole program. So think about the $1.44 million we're going to lose if the governor's budget passes. So I really think it's going to be devastating for our school system. So if I highly encourage you guys to pass this resolution, and I think the children of the town are going to be very thankful for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Anybody else like to speak on this resolution? If not, Councilor Roy, would you read the resolution, please? In the form of a motion? I take it.
Form of motion, Resolution 13-01, urging the Maine State Legislature to craft a biennial state budget that prevents a significant increase in property taxes. Be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Scarborough, Maine, in Town Council assembled, that whereas the Governor's unprecedented biennial budget proposal places municipalities in an untenable and uncertain fiscal position during their budget planning, and whereas the proposed biennial budget includes the suspension of municipal revenue sharing that would result in over $2.6 million in lost revenue to the town of Scarborough, and whereas the proposed budget cut the state's reimbursement for general assistance by an estimated $6.7 million, would eliminate the $10,000 homestead exemption for those under 65 years of age, eliminate the circuit breaker, property tax, and rent relief for anyone under 65, as well as take $8 million in truck excise tax revenues from municipalities, would create a corporate tax exemption for large amounts of currently taxable property, resulting in significant losses in local tax revenue. And whereas these proposed changes in state policy would shift a significant financial burden onto the municipalities' tax revenue, which would result in an estimated $225 or 5.37% increase in property taxes for the average Scarborough household. And whereas any cuts would have a far-reaching and detrimental impact on essential municipal services, now therefore be it hereby resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Scarborough in Town Council assembled, hereby urges the Maine State Legislature to craft a biennial budget compromise that considers the already high property tax burden, seeks balance, progressivity, and a comprehensive approach with respects to tax policy, and identifies alternative cost savings and tax reforms that would prevent a significant increase in property taxes and protect essential municipal services from detrimental cuts. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that should some or all of the proposed tax shift take place, the Maine State Legislature should authorize legislation to enable municipalities to consider the adoption of a local option sales tax in an effort to move away from total reliance on the regressive property tax and consider a more progressive tax structure. Signed and sealed is 6th day of March 2013 on behalf of the Town Council and the Town Manager of Scarborough, Maine.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any comments, discussions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Sullivan.
I agree with this, and I don't see it as a Republican or Democratic thing. I just see it as a necessity, And I've been saying for 4 years now on this council, this day was coming. And I'm afraid that this year isn't probably going to be the only one that's going to be tight with state budget and local budget. People are tight with money right now, and no one's getting raises. I know that as well as anybody. So I'll be supporting this.
Yep.
I'll be supporting it also, because I think at this time in all of our lives, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And we've got enough Democrats and Republicans pointing fingers back and forth that are amounting to nothing. It is time to stand up and be part of the solution. That's the main reason that I would be voting for it.
Anybody else like to speak? Council Roy?
The particularly important part of it that I see that will be helpful is certainly to try to get the local option sales tax in place so that it doesn't continue to be such a regressive tax. I think that's a really important step. That's something that's been out there for 20 years, and every time it comes up, it gets defeated by the legislature. However, if they are no longer going to be able to provide us the revenue-sharing dollars or the support for education, as stated in the Constitution of the state, then I think that they need to allow, particularly the southern communities, to have some local option tax. It's always been a war between northern Maine and southern Maine, but southern Maine communities do take or pay a good proportion of the tax burden and receive less funds for support of schools and revenue sharing than the northern communities. We also don't receive as many dollars to take care of our roads. Whereas the northern communities, most of the roads are taken care of by the state. That's why they're in such bad condition, I guess. But and even some of the roads in Scarborough that are still under the ownership of the state, the town has picked up the tab to refurbish them because they were dangerous for our community. So hopefully, if one thing comes out of this, certainly that allowing the communities to have a local option tax so that we have a source of revenue to help buffer some of the losses. So I certainly am going to support this. I'm the chair of the Finance Committee, and I'm kind of dreading the Finance Committee meetings. The manager is going to present his budget to the council on the 20th, and he's having a difficult time determining the complexity of the budget that he's going to present. Is he going to include the potential loss of 5.7% loss of dollars or not? Because everything is so much up in the air. And as we start looking at our budgets by department, which will begin on March 26th, and they will be for 5 weeks at 8 a.m., and public is welcome to come, and where each department will present their budgets. And certainly they've had guidance from the manager to hold the line. And even if they hold the line, if the governor's proposals go through as they are stated currently, or even if it's half of that, no matter what we do at a local level, we're going to see a tax increase that we don't want to see. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of this, and I hope many other communities do sign the resolution too.
Thank you. Anybody else? I too support this. I think this shifting, the shell game, you take it from one place and you shift it back on the municipalities is just it doesn't make sense to me, and it's something that is tried to be done in Augusta, and I think it's like other councilors have said, it's going to come back to hurt us really substantially in this community. And it's just, I think this document, this resolution is going around the state, and it's going around at a really fast pace, and people have really, they've latched onto this, and all groups, all communities seem to want to send a message. They do want to send a strong message that we got to back up and we got to try to do things the right way, else we're all going to hurt. It's going to be the big hurt this time. So I wholeheartedly support this, and I urge the rest of the council if you'd vote for it also. So, no other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Next item.
Under old business, order number 1303 is a second reading on the proposed amendments to Chapter 405, the Scarborough zoning ordinance regarding the Seventh Amendment to Contract Zone 9, New England Expedition. Shanae is here.
Rick, do you want to explain that for a little bit for us, please?
Again.
Mr. Shanae will give us a brief outline.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, Madam Clerk. My name is Rick Shanae, and I'm an attorney with Drummond Woodsum in Portland, and I represent the applicants in New England Expedition and New England Expedition 2 with respect to this amendment. As the council knows, this amendment came to you for first reading back in January, I think it was. Went on to the planning board. Planning board came back with a favorable recommendation. Came back to you last meeting for public hearing. I don't recall there was anyone spoke on it other than myself. And we're here tonight for the second reading and hopefully affirmative vote in favor of it. To briefly summarize, again, when the New England Expedition first proposed the Gateway project, which consists of the Cabela's parcel on the west side of Payne Road and the Gateway Square, which is the parcel on the east side of Payne Road and Higas Parkway, and the parcel this amendment relates to, the council, as part of the contract zone, required that the developer commit to building out a certain number of buildings, as shown on the site plan for the project, within a certain period of time. As a result of extensions of that build-out requirement and a modification of that build-out requirement, the condition now requires that as of March 12, the New England Expedition has to have completed foundations to support no less than 100,000 square feet of leasable space. Part of the reason for that condition and the rest of the condition, which required the installation of all infrastructure for the project, was to encourage, require the developer to make a certain commitment to the Gateway Square. The concern was that the Cabela's project would get built out and then the New England Expedition would not proceed to try to build out the Gateway Square, and hence the condition. All of the condition has been met. All the infrastructure is in, the roads, the power, the sewer, the water, the lighting, the detention pond that'll serve the project. Everything has been done except for the construction of foundations to support 100,000 square feet of leasable area. And as a practical matter, that just can't happen by March 12th. Furthermore, the project has changed since it was first envisioned. The major, you want me to?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please, sorry.
Should I get up?
Thank you.
Thanks.
The project had envisioned that Fairchild Semiconductor would build its significant building there, and that never came through. 2008 hit us and continues to affect us. The economy went downhill, and as of now, there are no parties who are looking to locate at the Gateway Square. So this condition, while I think useful in its inception, is now become an impediment, given the fact that if the project does proceed, it is very likely that it'll proceed in a different fashion. We will likely have to go back to the planning board for amended site plan approval. The layout of the buildings is likely to change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're essentially asking that the council recognize that the developer has, in fact, put a significant investment into the Gateway Square, and are requesting that this last piece of this condition be removed from the contract zone agreement so that we aren't faced with the problem of what do we do if it's not taken out and we get to March 12th. So that's it. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? We'll have a motion.
Any members of the public?
Any members from the public would like to speak on this item? Just step right up. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
Questions from the council? Any comments? We went through this pretty thoroughly back in January, and I think you pretty well answered most of our questions. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks, Mr. Sinead, appreciate it.
Order number 13-14 is a second reading to approve an expenditure in an amount not to exceed $270,000 from the Land Acquisition Reserve Fund for the purpose of purchasing the development rights of the Comstock Farm located at 22 Berry Road as recommended by the Parks and Conservation Land Board, and authorize the town manager to execute any and all documents that are necessary to protect the town's interests and ensure the preservation of the property for agricultural use. Mr. Austin.
And this is a second reading. Mr. Austin, did you want to make a comment about this? Are you all set? No. I can't believe that.
No, I'm Paul Austin. I'm on the Parks and Conservation Land Board. I'm also on the Board of the Land Trust. I would entertain any questions if anyone had anything. I think we've talked about it last week pretty thoroughly.
Well, again, we had some pretty good write-ups about this. This whole project, and it's a pretty good one, I think. Is there any questions from the council?
Just, you want an order on there before comments? I don't have a question.
Okay. Do we have a motion then?
I would move approval of order 13-14.
Second.
Any comments, Council Roy?
Yeah, just the comment that, just for the public benefit, the monies, the $270,000 comes from the reserve fund, and I believe we have $1.6 million still in that fund, and these are monies that were approved by voters to set aside. I think originally was $2 million, and then another $1 million.
A total of $5 million.
Yeah, total of $5 million altogether, and so, and the process, as the chair has indicated, was a multi-page document with any kind of data that you wanted to know about the agreement and the land use and its relationship with the town. I think it's an extremely thorough application and certainly a justifiable outlay of monies to preserve lands.
Any other comments? For me, that's a neighborhood I grew up in, and I think it's very exciting to see that we can save a little piece of that farm country up there, and I think it's wonderful, and we certainly, like Councilor Roy said, we have those monies set aside for projects just like this. This is what it was set up for, so I think it's perfect. It's a perfect fit, and I'm looking forward to it. Councilor Holbrook, you want to say something?
Just that I really appreciate it. It's the disappearing of farming seems to be rampant in southern Maine. So one of the other interesting factors behind this that certainly garners my support is that it remains a working farm. It continues on that tradition in perpetuity. So that's a phenomenal thing to happen.
Texas.
And Mr. Austin, thank you for your work and your group in this project. We certainly, I think it's worthwhile. No other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote. Congratulations.
Under new business, order number 13-15 is a first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading on the proposed amendments to Chapter 1002, the Town of Scarborough Shellfish Conservation Ordinance.
And who's here to speak for that?
Jim, did you want?
Jim, you're on the Shellfish Committee. Would you speak to that briefly?
I certainly will. The Shellfish Commission meets monthly, and it is really a go-to meeting because they mean business when they get together. They spend a lot of time researching and planning and thinking everything that goes into their ordinances that they're trying to change. And they have a few facts in there that they're just trying to get it right. And I think that this helps in everybody understanding what's going to take place. Proposed changes are time sensitive as they deal with the lottery in the first week of April. One of the main things was students trying to get clamming licenses. Originally, they had to be here physically in person to do it. And one of the kids to be out in Colorado going to college. It meant they had to come back here. Their parents couldn't, nobody could, no brothers, sisters, friends. The way it had been set up until this point was that that's what it had to be. And that was sort of a pretty iron fist clad. And so that was the main thing that got changed. And they can now do it by mail. Still has to be time sensitive, but it certainly doesn't require a $1,000 air ticket to come home and go back in the beginning of April. So I would urge the council to back them. They've done their homework. It seems appropriate to me also. I think we should give it a good look.
That a form of a motion?
If you'd like it to be, yes.
Yeah, I would. That'd be great. Do we have a second? Any other discussion that we have here? So this is the first reading. We'll schedule a public hearing, and then we'll have the second reading after that.
The same night,
Right?
yes.
The
The
same
public
night.
hearing, the second reading will be on the same night.
Well, okay, the public hearing and the second reading be on the same night.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments? All those in favor? It's a vote.
Order number 13-16 is act to authorize the town manager pursuant to the Town of Scarborough Real Estate Disposition Policy to prepare a request for proposal for the sale of a remainder of property located at 608 US Route 1, which was formerly the Scarborough Signs, map U34, lot 20.
And this one, Tom's not here tonight. He's at a family function, but this is that piece of property, Council Roy, that we had on the
Yeah.
corner there that we talked about over where Scarborough Signs is. And
I talked to him today about it.
yeah, and what that is there's a piece of property over there which is not developable by itself, so DOT has no interest in that property, and we've talked about in the past of disposing of surplus property that we have, and one of the budding neighbors has showed some interest in that property, so we'd like to put it out for bid and start the process to dispose of that undersized lot. Council Roy?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing of it is DOT has taken what they need to make the curb
Right.
cut so that there's a right-hand turn from Pine Point Road coming up. What it leaves is 6,400 square feet of land, which is adjacent to a house that's there, and it's also abuts the Rite Aid. And what Tom's proposing with this agreement would be for them to come forward, for anybody to come forward who is interested in the parcel, and there would only be those two parties potentially that would be interested in those parcels. Town Council, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's there, there's a proposal potentially for a restaurant, and they might need the land. And then neither of them might come forward and want to purchase it, but there has been some expressed interest, so that's the basic thing. And Tom
Well-
just wanted the authorization to, just to pursue that and see if there is, if money's available.
Yeah.
Because I think the parcel, we paid like $270,000 for the parcel, and that was out of impact fees, monies.
That's right.
That we had accumulated for the construction work. So, you know, it was an expenditure still from the town, but this would bring us back, and we don't know how much, because how much is 6,400 square feet worth to which person? So it's basically.
Again, it's an undersized piece of property, and we have talked in the past, more recently, I guess, that we need to get rid of some of this surplus property that we have, so this is probably a good idea to start in that direction. Other comments? Yeah, Council Benedict.
My feeling on it is that we had to purchase the lot as a total lot from Scarborough Signs. And since we end up with a little extra property and somebody else can use it, it makes all the sense in the world, especially in the economic situation that we're in, to sell off that piece of property, use it, let business take it if they do, because then we end up with some more tax money also. So it's a win-win. situation for whoever buys it, and it's a win-win for us because we get money back from the $270,000 that was expended on it. So I'll be in favor of selling it.
Anybody else? Okay. Anybody, I don't believe I asked the public, is there anybody on the public who would like to speak on this matter? Step right up. If not, pleasure of the council.
I would move approval of Order 1316.
Second.
Any other comments? All those in favor? It's a vote.
Order number 1317 is act on the request from the Senior Program Advisory Board to reduce the number of members from 7 to 5 voting members with one alternate. And Bud Hanson is here.
And we have Mr. Bud Hanson here tonight who would like to speak on this matter, and we're going to limit you to 20 minutes. That's travel time too, Bud.
I used to write 19 pages, but I only got to put them down just a few good comments. My name is Bud Hanson. I live here at Stony Creek Drive. I'm also the chairman of the Senior Citizens Program Committee Board. And when I first got onto the board, we had 9 members on the board. We were lucky to get it down to 7, I think 5 years ago. Now we're down to 5. The reason why is very easy. We become more efficient with a smaller group. We can make faster decisions. And our goals are proceeding very, very, very nicely. And I want to thank Ed Blades for coming to our workshops with his advice and his opinions. It's working out very well. As you notice, or haven't noticed, if you received your new 55 programs, okay, on page 14, we have the list of all those people who, I call it the $10 people. You can, go to Walgreens and go all of these people and things. We have some more people who want to come and join that group. In order to do it, we have to get approval of our advisory board. If you notice, we've done some outreach programs. And on the last page of the brochure, if you haven't seen it, we've added 55 new members to our program this Friday. As of yesterday, we have now 70 new members who have come out in the community to help us with the senior programs and to take advantage of all the things we do. If you haven't got one of these, you've already got your $10 ticket, when you get the discounts, read it. There's some good programs in here to take advantage of. Ask Ed, he knows all about it. So if there's any questions you need, I hope you will act on this and let us have 5. We'll become more efficient. We are very careful with the budget. We're very careful of the people we want on the board. I appreciate any questions? No? I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
We put Ed on that committee because he was the oldest counselor.
It was close.
Let's keep it in order here.
Thank you, Ron.
Yep. What's the pleasure of the council? Any comments, other comments from the audience? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the council?
Second.
Any other comments? If not, those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote.
Order number 13-18 is act on the request from the Finance Committee to approve an employee incentive program.
And I'll turn this over to Councilor Roy.
Actually, I could probably turn it over to Councilor Blaze, but, because it was his thought, I guess I can give some of the beginnings of it. He said, couldn't we come up with some employee incentive program? Our employees many times have a lot of good ideas relative to the budget and how things work, and we don't have anything in writing, and could we develop that? And Tom pulled out of his magic hat a incentive program that he had used when he was up in Rockland, and he and Ed sat down and did some adjusting in it, and we looked at it at Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee thought it was well worth a try, and I'll leave the rest of it to you, Ed, if you want to say more.
Councilor Blaze.
Thank you. I don't know what else to say without getting into a lot of detail, which I really don't want to do, but it's primarily a program that...
Wow.
What was my chair? What did
I
you
didn't do it.
You didn't do it?
No.
I'm thinking she did.
It was magic.
Little people.
Yeah.
It was a hobbit.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do is we wanted to allow employees the opportunity to voice their opinions on basically how the town is run. If they see in their everyday jobs something that could be done to improve their operation to save money, make a suggestion. We'll take a look at it. We'll have it analyzed, and we'll give you a reward. And basically, what we're thinking about doing is we're thinking about providing a 10% reward for the amount of money that's saved over the first year. So now, instead of people having a budget and protecting a budget, they can go out and say, hey, I can save some money, I can get some money in my own pocket, which is good for them. You know, they should have that. And I think there's a lot of things that, a lot of people say, well, the manager should be responsible for that. They should understand what's going on in their department. The department heads and the managers of the different organizations in town, they don't know the intricacies of everything that's happening. The employees do. They see it every day. So let's give them the opportunity to stand up and say, I think we should do this, or we should do that. What we're proposing is we're proposing to have a small committee of some technical people in town, one member of the town council. We're also thinking about having one member of the community on the committee. And then 3 technical people throughout the town. And what they would be responsible for doing is taking a look at the suggestion right off the bat and then sending it off to whatever department would be responsible for implementing that. Getting an idea, can it be done? Is it a viable alternative? And then get back and calculate an award and provide the award and implement the savings. We're going to try it, or we'd like to try it in the town, and if it looks like it's working in the town, we'd like to go over to the school board and suggest this to the school board and have that done in the school. The school spends more money than the town does, so I think there's more opportunity for savings in the school than there is for the towns. But if we can start here, then we can move to the school. We're also thinking about, I talk to people all the time around town, and they have these ideas. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? We're thinking about maybe having a suggestion box out front. Let people in town come forward, drop off a suggestion, we'll take a look at it. Any way that we can possibly save the town money. Save the town money, and then maybe not take it out of the taxes, but turn around and put it towards other things that we've been wanting to do in the past, but haven't had the money to do it. So basically, we're going to try to save and then reinvest in things that hopefully would be more beneficial to everyone. That, in a nutshell, is
Great,
what we're trying
thank
to do.
you. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this? Any comments? Step right up. State your name, address.
Paul Austin, Tide Mill Lane. In my previous life, I was a manufacturing manager and a quality manager, and I've been involved in these sorts of programs in various companies. I think having a committee, if you can find a volunteer committee to do it, is a great idea. I'd caution you that administering these things is really difficult. You can get many, many suggestions that take many, many hours to resolve. I think my suggestion would be is why don't you put a sunset on this of develop this and propose it for a year or 2 years, something like that, and then renew it if, have a really accurate review, and then consider, don't just make it something that lasts forever. I'd encourage you to take a really good review of how this works out at some reasonable length of time.
Thank you.
That's good feedback. It's definitely something that we have to take a look at. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If we're spending, and one thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to spend a lot of time, people's time, taking a look at these things and getting such a tiny benefit out of it.
If I could just say one more thing. I had one employee in one company that spent all his spare time working on these ideas, and we had to make a decision to pay him something like, I can't remember the exact number now, but it was something in the order of $200,000 or $300,000 for a suggestion that he made. And it was a great suggestion, but it was pretty painful to have to come up with that much money, even though theoretically he saved us a huge amount of money. So there's some real gotchas in these sorts of programs.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? If not, the action of the council, form of a motion.
So moved.
Second?
I would move to amend it and to set a sunset, to review it in a year and reevaluate in 1 year.
Second.
Second the amendment.
A second.
Any discussions on the amendment? If not, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? It passed. Now the main motion. Any discussion on the main motion?
As amended.
I think it's a good idea. Let's try it. Hopefully it'll work. Good for you to think about that and to come up with it. So, all those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote. Next order.
Order number 12-19 is a discussion with action on the following. 1, act on the appointment of Susan Russo, currently the Assistant Assessor, on an interim basis as the Assessor for the Town of Scarborough, her appointment being necessitated in light of the retirement of Assessor Paul Esperance to ensure that the town continues to have a duly appointed assessor in charge of the Department of Assessment. Ms. Russo's appointment to go forward under her current terms of employment with the town and to continue to such a time as the council appoints Mr. Lesperance's successor. An appointment of Mr. Lesperance as a special deputy assessor for the town of Scarborough for purposes of overseeing, attending to, and representing the town of Scarborough in tax abatement proceedings relating to the tax year of 2012-2013, with the date of evaluation of 4/1/2013. And authorization of reasonable consideration to be paid to Mr. Lesperance for his services as special deputy tax assessor, the final terms of such compensation and terms of service provided by Mr. Lesperance as special deputy assessor to be set forth in a letter of agreement from the town manager.
So in way of explanation, we have a couple of things here. Mr. Lesperance is retiring, as we all know, and it's going to be done within a month, I believe. Pretty quick, so we need someone to fill in for him, and we have a very qualified person in-house to do it, so that makes sense. We have some things in motion, some appeals that are in motion. Mr. Lesperance would like to stay, and he'd like to see those through, whatever it takes. He's volunteered to do that, but we're not going to let him volunteer to do that. We're certainly going to pay him for his services. And as you all know, we all know, he's very good at what he does. He's well-respected around this state, and we certainly appreciate the fact that he wants to stick with things that are already in motion. So what this does is set it up so his replacement, Susan Russo, would take his place until we find his replacement. On a side note, I guess, I've met with the town manager, and we've talked about that, and the human resources director, and we have something in motion. I believe we've advertised it already.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's a fast track, but certainly it's something we want to get done. You know, it's very important to do. So I guess that's all the pieces, and we wanted to bring it to the public, and we wanted to vote on, you know, if that's a good game plan to move forward with. So, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, pleasure of the council.
Move approval.
Second.
Any comments?
Yes.
Yeah.
How,
Councilor Sullivan.
with this, the tax assessor is appointed by the council similar to the manager.
Yeah.
How is that going to proceed?
We get it, when we get a new one, then we'll appoint the new one.
No, I meant,
We're going to have.
are there interviews, or the
Yeah,
chair
well-
going to interview and the vice chair, or is the whole council?
Exactly. What we talked about was the chair and the vice chair, and certainly if there's other councils who want to be part of that, we're more than welcome to have them do that. And, yeah, in the end, then we're going to be the ones to appoint the assessor.
Well, basically, I just wanted the
Yeah.
public to know that it's
Oh, yeah,
the
okay.
manager.
Yeah, well, that's one of that's one of
It's
the
the
things that we
council's
do.
decision.
HR is receiving the applications, I think, as she's doing with for the president of SEDCO. She's sorting them, and by where they live and how the resumes look. And then we'll be doing,
And they're due by March 22nd.
yeah, and they'll be looking at those and cull them down to a small group, and then when it's down to the final group, I think the entire council will
Exactly.
be involved in
And then we'll
an
vote
interview
to
with
appoint
them,
the
yeah.
assessor.
much as we've done with hiring the manager.
Right.
So there was a couple of things. One was to fill in somebody temporarily to take care of the duties, and the other one was we wanted to recognize that he wanted to be part of the ongoing appeals that he's handling. So we want to recognize that and make sure that he get compensated for that.
I
Sure.
just wanted to make an observation. The order as written in the agenda does not include authorizing the manager to give due compensation for.
Oh, I thought,
It's in the
our notes?
the initial
Right.
agenda,
Right.
okay, which was read by the town clerk. The three items: to act on the appointment of Susan, to appoint Mr. Lesperance temporarily, and then to authorize, some payment. But when you get to the actual order,
All right.
Well, do you want to
it
make,
doesn't
do
include that, so I would just,
And then,
you want to make an
I
amendment
would,
to
I
that?
would move to amend the order as written in the agenda, to amend it with item 3 and under the discussion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? If not, all those in favor? Opposed, it's a vote on the main motion. All those in favor? Opposed? It's a vote, thank you. Next,
Non-action items.
there are none. Standing and special committee reports, Council Roy.
The Finance Committee hasn't met again. We were scheduled to meet next Tuesday, but we're not going to meet until the 26th, when the budget hearings will begin on March 26th for 5 weeks, each Tuesday from 8 to 10 a.m. And there are different departments that will present their budget proposals on each of those days. And as I said earlier, the manager will present his budget at the next council meeting. And I also attended the GP-COG Steering Committee, and one of the things the Steering Committee did at that meeting was to discuss a resolution that would cement the relationship between GP-COG and PACS. GP-COG and PACS have been working together for years, and monies that PACS uses to do their projects on transit and those kinds of things come through GP-COG and are doled out to PACS. So there's a symbiotic relationship, but there was never any legality established to the relationship. So they brought forward a resolution, but they failed to include the financial interests. Now GP-COG bills PACS for office service, for space use, those kinds of things, but there's no formal agreement. So legal counsel is refining that wording and is going to bring that factor back to the executive committee. And we discussed the budget for 2012, and they're $70,000 over budget. Surprise, surprise, in the economy that is. That's basically as a result of Governor LePage abruptly eliminating the Go Maine project, which was nationally recognized for its excellence. And then the last thing that happened at that committee was they did provide us with a huge paper, the 11 by 17, the cooperative bidding process chart, so that we could look at what cooperative bidding did we participate in through GP cog, and which ones did we not, and we can look at why we didn't, because probably we got a better bid. Interesting enough, what they also included in this GP cog cooperative buying grouping was the schools. But the school departments predominantly do not do their cooperative buying through GP cog. However, they are the benefactors of bid process, because, like, for example, in Scarborough, our Public Works takes care of our buses, our police vehicles, and our fire rescue vehicles. And so they cooperatively buy tires through GP cog, and it actually gets used by the other departments. So there's some refinement of that, but it's kind of an interesting graph, and I did provide the manager with a copy of that, so that he has that to look at. And it would be something interesting, maybe we can make copies for the rest of the council to look at, too, because there are several other bid processes out there that perhaps we might be able to take advantage of. SEDCO is meeting tomorrow morning, and I will be attending as a backup to Councilor Alquist, who is flying off away from us tomorrow. Energy Committee is meeting again on March 20th. The last meeting, we again discussed the tri-generation model, which is a model of heating, cooling for the town, and energy saving, certainly. We're going to have a report on the Class 5 guide for K through 12 from one of our members. Also, we're going to be beginning videoing energy efficiency efforts by one of our committee members who is pretty much totally off the grid. She produces all of her own energy, and they're going to do some videoing of small projects, low-hanging fruit that all of us can take part in to save energy. And Rick Meinken, who's our chair, gave a presentation of the Energy Star portfolio, which takes all the data from the dashboard and looks at data from various departments and how the energy usage is, and looks to see if there are any spikes and why there's spikes, and leveling those things out. And we've done some of that already in the fire department and saved lots of energy. And then Long Range Planning Committee met, and we discussed the Crossroads District, which encompasses all of the property owned by Scarborough, most all of the property owned by Scarborough Downs. Some of their property is in the Haggis Parkway. There was a open discussion about inclusion of verbiage in the district relative to the gambling. The committee is going to come forward with this zone, and there'll be some talk of that, but there will be nothing put into the ordinance at this point in time. However, there will be input, verbal input for council consideration. And the Metro Coalition Initiative is another meeting that is the 19th that I'll be attending, and the PAX meeting on the 21st. So other than that, I haven't been doing a thing.
We can see that. Councilor Holbrook.
Appointments met this evening. We have some names to post. We have an ad hoc transportation committee. We have Jennifer Williams. The Conservation Commission would be J. Anton Bodor, as well as Jean-Marie Caterina. Long Range Planning Committee has a applicant of Corey Fellows. Pest Management Committee is Chris Herrick. For the Planning Board, Corey Fellows and John DuPont. For the Portland International Jetport Noise Advisory Committee, Guy Gledhill. And for the Zoning Board of Appeals, Leroy Crockett, Rick Loisel, and Michael J. Richard. Housing Alliance will be meeting tomorrow, March 7th, which is Thursday at 7 p.m. They have not had an opportunity to meet since our last council meeting, where we had we voted to approve the memorandum of understanding, so I'm sure that'll be the main topic of discussion at that meeting. And Conservation Commission will be meeting Monday, March 11th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Councilor Sullivan.
I have nothing to report. The Transportation Committee has not had a meeting since the last, which was at the Old Oak Hill Grammar School, discuss sidewalks on Black Point Road. I guess that's it. Reports. Ordinance Committee.
Yeah, what
I'm
about that?
sorry. Ordinance Committee was canceled.
What?
Yes. Because of lack of
Oh, yeah,
attendance.
okay. You're up. You're
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. I have none to report on tonight.
Council Blades.
Well, we've already discussed the two items that the Senior Advisory Board, changing that from 7 to 5 members. Thank you, Bud, for coming this evening. And the other thing would be the Judy and I discussed about the Finance Committee and incentive program.
Council Benedict.
I was just dealing with the water in the town, as I spoke to you earlier about. I have no other reports to come forward.
For me, the Maine board meeting will be coming up later on this month. I'll be attending that. There's appointed to the PACS committee, and that'll be coming up pretty quick.
21st.
21st. I'll be attending that. I went to the ordinance committee, and that was interesting. I mean, I guess I was it. but-
Nobody else was there.
I was the alternate, and I was it, but I guess that was a bad time for folks, but I guess we have a few things that we need to take care of at our next meeting, but other than that, it's all good. Councilor comments? Councilor Sullivan?
I really don't have anything. Thank you.
Councilor Holbrook? Councilor Roy?
Start off with what I usually, the condolences out to the families of just 3 this time, so that's Marguerite Steele Nelson, and she was a member of our Senior WOW group and actually had been to the Senior WOW luncheon the day before she passed away. She stayed active right up until the end. Joan Rice Lozier, she's the wife of Paul Lozier, who owns the Oak Hill Redemption, and Paul Steele, who was a resident at the Maine Veterans Home. And other comments? Certainly, I do have to speak to the Dunstan issue. First, certainly, I want people to know that I did listen to all of your comments. And I apologize for not getting the vote right for the planning board vote. I was wrong with that. But when I again looked at it, the vote actually was 4-2. It's actually 4-3 because Alan Paul, who was on the Long Range Planning Committee and was not at the Planning Board, approved it on the Long Range Planning Committee. And then one of the people that voted no was hedging back and forth. So I'm still okay with it because I think that if you've got 4 people that said nay at that site plan review is really going to be a tough site plan review. And based on a lot of the comments tonight, all of those issues that you've brought up that were mentioned, i.e. the lighting and the traffic, those are parts and parcel of that process. I think I would be the first one in line. If that project did not go through, I would propose a zone change back to the R3, R4, because I would not want to see businesses abutting the houses. At least the apartments are residential. So anyway, I apologize for that wrong vote, but I think that the planning board will scrutinize and they will do everything that they can. I would encourage those of you that are involved right now to stay involved and go to those site plan reviews. They do allow you to get up and speak and ask questions and stay on top of it. I know that's how I got on the council. I just got up and talked about sewers for quite a while before I got elected to the town council. So I think the process does work. I think those folks that were voiced opposition to it will negotiate in your best interest. So I think it's unfortunate that the meeting was held during the school week. It wasn't done intentionally. It was originally scheduled for the 20th of February. We had to cancel that meeting because we did not have a quorum. And we honestly did not think about that factor. And so that's a lesson learned for us, that we really just need to, when we've got to reschedule something, let's look at it again. But that does not negate the fact that people could still email us, and we got several emails, and so we know where that stands. What else about it? I think, at this point, from what I've heard, it's not a rushed thing. I know of somebody who lives down off Orchard Street, and that person asked me about this project last spring, because this project was brought before the Long Range Planning Committee last April. And because one of the newer positions of the Long Range Planning Committee is to review projects such as that, and to make comment and to give recommendation on it. And so it's something that's been out there, and it's not been rushed. I guess the other thing that I still feel about it is that, it is a residence. I think that any young couple that gets married doesn't always go out and buy a house. You live in an apartment, and I think these are high-end apartments. I don't know if I'd want to go out and spend $1,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, or $1,250 or $1,400 for a two-bedroom. So I think, the quality of folks that are going to be in those buildings, if that comes to fruition, they're going to be good neighbors. And I think that, again, the planning board is going to take care of the buffers, the lighting, the density, the traffic. I think 2 stories is sufficient. That's my personal feeling. But I think traffic study will dictate that, because if it's 31 units and there's too much traffic, they're going to reduce the number of units by reducing the height of the building or the size of the building. So those are things that will come out of that site plan review. Am I making the right decision, or did I make the right decision? I believe I did. But I've been known to be wrong, too. But I will stay on top of this process, and I will, make sure that I watch those site plan reviews, and I certainly welcome any of you to call me. I did answer some of the emails. I apologize I didn't answer all of the emails, but I inadvertently eliminated a few of them, and they went up somewhere, and I don't have the cloud attached to my computer yet. But I did answer a few people. So my hope is that it will be a good project if in fact it does get finally approved. But when it comes to zoning, it was our decision, not the planning board's, and we don't always agree with them, and we don't have to agree with them. And apparently, my fellow councilors, felt that same way. So we did listen. I did listen. So we'll move forward and keep a tight rein on what the process holds for us.
Thank you. Councilor Benedict.
That's a hard one to follow, Judy. I agree with her wholeheartedly. The one thing that I take personal distaste to from the neighbors that are objecting to this apartment complex thing is this, in most of the emails, not all of them, most of them have referred to that type of person. That's a tough pill to swallow, that type of person. I don't know how much money everybody had when they got married, but the first place I lived was not in a house that I owned. It was in an apartment. And I think the regression of those type of people is not a good entity or a good basis for an argument. I think those are going to be made to more than standard. And again, as I said at the last meeting, after we had done the vote, that when this is all said and done, whatever comes out of it, I hope that it's in a positive fashion, and I hope it's done to bring the neighborhood up, or at least keep it within the status quo. And if we keep our thumbs on it, there's no reason it should get out of hand, and there's no reason that we can't at least agree with what was going to be put there. Can't always get our way. and I just hope that the project comes out the way that we anticipate it being started in a positive nature.
Thank you, Council Blaze.
No comments.
Councilor St. Clair?
I do. I just have a quick comment. I wanted to thank the town and the council for the support that you've shown my family over, I apologize, the last 9 weeks since losing our son.
Thank you. For me, I just wanted to mention a few things. Greg Brown passed away, Engine 6, Ladder 1, over to Dunston. He was a longtime friend. I fought many fires with him over the years, 25, 26 years I was on the fire department. I think he had like 40 years in or something. He was an incredible human being who never got involved in the politics, but it was always there to put out the fires, you know. I give him a lot of credit for that. He'd show up no matter what. He didn't care about what was going on. He just wanted to help the community, and he felt strongly that everybody had to get involved and should get involved and help the community, and that was his contribution, was being a firefighter at Engine 6. So I wanted to send my condolences to the family. The other thing I wanted to say, I went to Paul Esperance and Harvey's Roosevelt's. We went to their retirement. I think Council Roy was there and Council Blaze. We went to their retirement luncheon. I think they'll both be missed sorely. I think they've worked hard for this town. I think they've, you know, Harvey, God bless him, it's been a tough spell here, you know, with the economy and everything, but boy, he's the most optimistic person around, you know, and he keeps plugging away, and I appreciate the time and the efforts that he put in, and I think he's made Scarborough a better place. Paul L'Esperance, I think, you know, he was a pro at what he did. He was well-liked. He was certainly well-respected around this state. And very, I don't know, maybe you can, Councilor Roy, but I don't think we can remember the times that he's been overturned in his appeals. You know, he's rock solid in what he does, and I appreciate the fact that he stepped up. The first thing he wanted to do was see the appeals in process. He wanted to see those through before he got done, but I certainly appreciate his efforts, and I wish them both the best retirement, so. Other than that, is there anything else? Any other comments? If not, a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Good night.
I got to the party at 2. It was supposed to be 12 to 3. It came from the steering committee.
Don't go near the state of the pimples out.
Nobody was here, they were all gone.
Oh, more than who's about it.
Additional extra rental units. So I'm still concerned about that. I don't understand what that is. And I did contact the DEP today to ask about that. The marsh that comes up through there does abut me on 25 Carriageway. There is definitely a piece where it passes up through. I've not done anything with the DEP, nor do I want to get into that. I'm just asking the question. It sounds like it's been researched, and everybody knows where they're going with that. So it was just a concern I had along with stormwater. That's got to go somewhere. And it is an awful small piece of land to get a bunch of people into, and I'm not convinced that the definition of who will end up in these apartments is clearly laid out in this report. So it's my concern. I hope the council takes it into concern for the residents that live in this area that purposely came to this area for Scarborough and everything it's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Madam Chair, if I could just speak to the December 5th letter that was written by me. The discussion with regard to the potential number of units in the project, as you know, in looking through a request for a zone change, part of the application materials that are necessary to be provided to you folks is a concept of what might happen on the property. In December, when we put that program together, we based it on the ordinance provisions, and there are provisions in the ordinance for density requirements associated with two-bedroom apartments, one-bedroom apartments, affordable housing units, as well as live-work units. As Rocky mentioned just tonight, we do not have architectural designs for these buildings. We don't know the massing of how that all would play out, but we wanted to give you folks a feel for what might be on that program. In the interim, since December and now, which is February 20th, there have been some further evaluations on our part, looking at what might be market rate, what might be available, and what might be desirable and beneficial for the community. At this point, although it's allowed in the ordinance, as Rocky mentioned tonight, he's not proposing the live-work units. This is not a program that we established for this project. This is something that is allowable in the ordinance today. Same thing with the affordable housing. The number 31, which is shown in the application materials, involves all the mathematics that get to that 31. And affordable housing allows an opportunity for an applicant to come in and provide some additional units. Up to 40% of the additional units would have to be affordable housing. So in doing the math, that's simply how it came out. How the ultimate project looks, how many units are in it, is still a long ways down the road. And I think one of the things that is of concern to folks is that with a decision by you folks tonight that this is going to be built. This is a concept plan. And the time that is necessary for us to be able to refine it, define it, present it, allow public comment through the planning board process, and detailed review of all the specific items with regard to natural resources, drainage, traffic studies, all those different things happen in the next stages of the process. But we can't get there, and we can't define those things in any better terms than as we've presented to you tonight.
Nancy, could I ask a follow-up? So do I understand you correctly? The 31 units that you're proposing take advantage of the density bonus that's afforded through our ordinance.
That's correct.
So how many units would the property yield, assuming a change to TDC, without taking advantage of that bonus?
I can't tell you the number off the top of my head. Do you?
Can I, Tom, I think, can't give you a quick number on that because the way it's set up, a one-bedroom unit is a half, a two-bedroom unit is three-quarters, so it's a combination of unit sizes to get there. So in other words, if we built all one-bedroom units, we could build more. So it's a, I don't know how to explain it, but you need to figure out what you want to do to get there. And part of our proposal to get to 31 is basically they were half one-bedroom, half two-bedroom, and pick up on the affordable housing adds a bonus, so that's how we got to 31. But there's a mathematical equation there to get there.
And just for the benefit of the public, the term affordable housing is defined in the zoning ordinance, and our definition pegs the affordability at 120% of media area income. For a family of four, that's roughly $87,000 household income. So I just wanted that in some sense might be laughable. It's not really affordable, but by Scarborough standards, it's better than a lot of the market rate. So I just wanted to put that out there to the notion that it's low income. We're talking about really workforce housing.
Hi, my name's Ryan Ackley. I'm also a resident of 3 Griffin Road. My girlfriend Elena spoke earlier, and this proposal here is just, it's in our backyard. We've already got people walking through our yard. We moved here to get the peaceful area. You know, I was brought here by work. My career brought me here, and we'd basically lose all that. It's just hard to think how many people you can shove in this little area. And that's right where our garden is, basically. So who's going to walk through our yard? That concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Fellows, 36 Orchard Street. I think the combination of the decade I've spent living in Dunston plus looking at this zoning map, which all of you I'm sure are familiar with, led me to oppose this zoning change. For me, this zoning map, which you all are familiar with, really kind of says it all. I'm not in support of jutting the orange out all the way into this residential area. The way the zoning map was written was a line of a certain number of feet off of Route 1. And in this case, for example, even less. That strikes me as a fairly substantial increase in that TVZ zone into a very clearly residential neighborhood. I know that there's not going to be traffic access directly onto Orchard Street, but I do believe it would also integrally change that residential neighborhood, and I think that that's reflected in this zoning map. It's defined right here in these color-coded blocks what the folks who drew the map thought was residential and thought had the potential to be TVC. And I think that dark green colored block jutting in out of TVC, clearly unequally from the rest of the TVC line, I think goes against the spirit of what the TVZ map is supposed to do and the way it was drawn. So that is what I came here to say. I support a lot of what my neighbors have said tonight, and I hope you folks will take the spirit of what the TVC was supposed to be in consideration, especially with regards to Dunstan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janice Sear, and I'm at 34 Orchard, and I knew very little about this until my neighbor, thank you, let us know. We built back some 20 years ago when my area around 34 was considered Phase 2, and we did our homework, as I'm sure most people do, before they make a move. What drew us to Scarborough was a number of things, including the beautiful area and how lovely and residential it was, and we did our homework even within our neighborhood. At the time, there was another phase that was going to happen behind us. We made a decision at that time to pick a lot that was on the side of the street that abuts that gully, which may be some of what you're talking about. We made that decision because it was unknown at that time what was going to happen and what was going to be built in Phase 3. And the reason I'm bringing that up is, as many folks have mentioned, what I object to is changing the rules midstream. We've been here for 20 years, we moved here, we did our homework, it was a residential area, and you're talking about a change that, the little bit that I've learned tonight, sounds like it's going to change the feel of the neighborhood. And so my vote is to not let that happen, that we moved here, it was residential, and I'd like to keep that feel the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Saraya Gobiel, and I'm at 18 Orchard Street. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions about the project as well. My first comment tonight is that I know that as a property owner who directly abuts this project, I did get a letter in the mail. However, I did speak to some of my neighbors who do directly abut the property, and they were I was told by them they did not receive anything. So I'm a little concerned about the communication that went out on this for the property owners that directly abut this, because I don't know if it was sent to everyone. Having said that, I did speak to other people in the neighborhood, and a lot of people, because this is school vacation week, they are away. If this was on another night of the week where it wasn't school vacation week, I'm sure we would have 30 or 40 people here to talk about this project. Another comment I want to make, and it's just, I was here 2 weeks ago when Risbera and company did their presentation, and Rocky mentioned this earlier. They talk about this tree line that separates the property that is they want to put the apartment building to the existing residential homes, and this tree line is very sparse. Okay, if you stand today, I was down at the mailbox getting my mail, and I just looked over to the right at the trees. And if you stand there at that mailbox and you look to the right, you can actually see Route 1. You can see the mobile station, okay? And that whole land that is there is totally open to Orchard Street. And that is where the tree line is. If you're at my house or any houses to the left or prior to my house coming onto Orchard Street, there are no trees whatsoever. So there is no tree line whatsoever blocking my house or the houses near me from this project. A question I had to Risbera Brothers is, I am aware of the 3 houses that you're putting in. I can definitely see, obviously there's one house up, I know there's another house going right next to it. What I'm really unclear of is where that 3rd house is going. And the reason why I ask is because right now there are trees, I think, where that 3rd property is going. And I'm just wondering what else is getting cleared out there, because if there's more trees getting cleared out, that's going to open up that whole area even further than what it is today. Also, last time during the presentation, there were 4 options that Risbera showed as they were doing their research and trying to plan what they were going to put into this property that they've purchased. And of those 4 options, I don't recall any of them being residential homes, of what it's zoned for. So my question is, why aren't you looking to put in residential homes into that property, as it's zoned for R3, and that's what it's for residential, single-family residential homes? A further concern of mine I'm having, last week, if you're here, and I know the town council saw the presentation, I don't think most of the people here saw the presentation, but in the agenda and in the presentation, there was a very, a picture of 3 large apartment buildings with a kind of a horseshoe shape with a parking lot in the middle of it. And I learned they had pictures last week of various other projects in Westbrook and Scarborough of these huge box houses. And they're also, I was told that they're going to be 3 stories, which I wasn't aware of until the last meeting. And these are all 2-story houses, or some of them are ranches in our home. So I'm very concerned about the visual line in looking at 3-story buildings and back behind my house. And I guess the more concern that I'm having tonight, the more I hear about this, is that was the plan that was proposed, is 3 stories, 31 apartments, single bedroom, 2-bedroom. But now what I'm hearing is, well, that's not maybe what we might do more. We might do multiple 1-bedrooms, maybe more 2-bedrooms. There could be more than 31 apartments. Maybe you won't put apartments there. And my understanding, the vote tonight is to change the zoning from to TVC. And my concern is that if we do pass this to TVC, we don't know what's going to go in there. This is open to anything.
You're at 4 minutes now, so if you could just wrap.
Okay. This is open to anything, okay? And this is directly abutting a residential area. So I'm very concerned that it doesn't really seem to be a strong plan of what they want to do. We've heard apartments, but if it is changed to TVZ, this could be anything. That's what I'm hearing, that anything that's TVZ. And if this does get changed, Risbera could put apartments in, or maybe they could turn around and sell it to some other person who's going to put some other things in there. Okay, and now the zoning has been changed, so I'm very concerned about that. And the other thing I want to reiterate, when I purchased my home 10 years ago, I obviously knew there was land right behind my house, and I, as well as our other neighbors, did my research. Okay, I never would have bought a house that had open land for, that would be used for commercial use. All right, I checked with the town, I checked with the builder. They said it was all residential. Knowing that at some point there could be houses put in, I was fine with that. But I don't understand how we can go and change the zoning for something in my backyard when it's been residential for past multiple years.
Could you wrap?
No.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
at
it's-
4.5 minutes.
All right.
And give other people a chance, and we have
Sure.
lots of
And
others.
I want to touch on the water, too, just from living there. There's storm drainage that comes back behind my house. Every time it rains, I have a river in my yard. And I know the marsh got brought up, but I'm just wondering if that's been looked at as well, because I know that right now, currently, there's a lot of water over there. There's a bridge over there. You can't walk through that land for a lot of parts, because there's a substantial amount of water in that land. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Once it goes to council motion, that's the end of the discussion of public. We get our chance. All right. Motion from the council, please.
Excuse me,
We need a motion before we can discuss.
yeah, but my question is about the motion.
Okay.
What are we making a motion on?
The agenda
Approving
item.
it or moving it to the next meeting?
No,
Approving it.
Approving it?
Approving it. Motion to approve Order 1314.
Second.
Okay. Questions and comments from the council?
1216.
Hmm?
It's 12-116.
12-116.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to find it.
Okay,
There we
comments and discussion from the council. Council Blaze.
Well, I'll start off, I'm against it. I haven't heard one person get up that lives in that area say that it's a good idea. I've got a pile of emails. Every single one of them is against it. I'm a firm believer that people that live in their neighborhood should decide what goes into their neighborhood. And to me, this is a violation of what they want in their neighborhood. So I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you. Councilor Holbrook?
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a contentious issue. I will be supporting it tonight. And I think this has a lot to do with, there's a lot of concerns, and I understand that. It's hard when something it's your backyard. Absolutely, it's concerning. All of those will 100% be addressed in the planning board level. This is a zone change level. I also work on the liaison to the Housing Alliance. I can tell you, I know one of the things that was brought up is a concern about the kind of person that might live there. That's not even an issue for me. I don't know that I could even address that. That's, somebody that can afford $1,000 a month is actually more than I can afford. That's more than I can pay. So the kind of person that brings is your counselor, to be honest with you. I'm that kind of person, so I will be supporting this. And again, in the town and village center, I know there's a neighborhood on one side, but there's also the TVC on the other. I'm certainly more comfortable with the driveway by the looks of it, and I'm sure the planning board will be no different. The road for this goes on to Route 1. It does not go back into the other neighborhood. And ultimately, it's hard. Changes are hard. Unfortunately, that's part of the problem here in Scarborough. Things have always been changing. And a housing is needed. I guess that's the other thing. Looking at it as a housing aspect, this type of housing is needed. It is desperately needed in this town, and that's why we came up with the TBC zones to start looking at where these places can be and where these places can go. So that's it for me.
Excuse me, we made no comment during your comments, and you need to respect our right to have an open discussion. Okay? Thank you. Further things?
No.
Jessica? Okay.
Now,
Counselor Sullivan?
this was brought forward by the Long Range Planning Committee and approved by them?
It was presented to the Long Range Planning Committee as part, yes.
Yes.
And they,
So before they were known as the
comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive, which did all the TVC zoning. And so I find it, that if it, there was a comment about adding, this to that zone, the residential zone. I meant, we're talking about pretty much the same group that made these zones up in the first place. And we change zones all the time, depending on what we think's best for the town. And in this case, I think this probably will be a good addition, apartments in Dunstan area. We have plenty of them in Oak Hill, lots of apartments in Oak Hill and in residential areas. I think one of the oldest neighborhoods that are 70 years old had one, Camper Down was originally supposed to be apartments put into that neighborhood. So I'll be supporting this tonight.
Councilor Benedict?
I will be supporting this also for alternative reasons. I spoke with a Realtor who has been in the business probably 30-odd years. And what I asked him was, when people bought into that area, if they were told anything was or was not going to happen to that property. And he assured me that realtors are not allowed to do that. You can't foresee what's going to be put somewhere. He also said the average house turnover in Maine is 7 years, and that the majority of that neighborhood was in excess of 25 years. So that neighborhood has seen 2 or 3 transitions in its life. Each and every person knowing that that piece of property was there. If they didn't know that it was there, I guess you're going to ask who asked it down, chicken or the hen, chicken or the egg, which comes first, who's supposed to say something. But the property has been there and has been doing absolutely nothing, and I'm sure that the people in general have been using it. I took a ride down there. I took a ride down Griffin Road. It appears to me that that's all rental property, or the majority of it. No. Okay, 2-family houses. 3. It's got rental units on it.
Excuse me, we can't have a discussion with the audience. This is a discussion of the council.
From what I could see, some of
I know where you're coming from.
the houses have 2 front doors. They appear to be rental property. Whether they're owner occupied or not, I don't know. I do know that the improvement in the area would not be bad. I think that the plot of land that the Rispera brothers want to build on certainly needs to be built on, or something should be done with it. And it seems to be we're getting more and more of an elderly community, myself included. I won't be in my house forever, and I'll be looking for somewhere to go, whether it be an apartment complex, which I lived in back when I was married in the 60s, and I really don't want to go back to that. And I'm in the same situation as you people are. I live on Burnham Road. I've got an 8-acre parcel beside me that's been sitting there, and I've been in my house for 13 years. I know the gentleman that owns it. Very nice little guy. He comes in and takes a little wheelbarrow with a few sticks of wood and brings it out. He's about 85 years old. Puts it in his trunk, comes there about 5 times a year. And somewhere along the line, that 8 acres is going to come up for building. What's going to be there? I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. Whatever comes up. So the fact that this property has now found a home, I have all the faith in Risborough Brothers with what they have built. I have seen what they built. And I have no problem with it in the community where it wants to be placed. Thank you.
And that leaves me. Councilor Alquist owes me. I see the difficulty. I hear where the residents are coming from. Change is very difficult. I live in a neighborhood that I've resided in 40 years. And all the trees were stripped off the other side of the road that abuts my property, and 7 houses have been built. And I didn't like it. When we moved there in 1973, that parcel of land was a parcel of land owned by DOT, and supposedly in perpetuity to remain that way as a buffer to the I-295. Guess what? There's 7 houses. They got 2 more to go. Lost all the trees. Change happens. I've lived in Scarborough 60 years. I've seen lots of changes. I understand some of the concerns of the folks that reside in that area, but I think that that's the planning board process that needs to wheedle that out. I think if any of you attended the planning board, there was a lot of yes and no on the planning board. I believe the vote was 4 in favor and 3 against on the planning board. So there are a number of concerns on the planning board. They're going to address the lighting, the buffers, the traffic. They're going to look at the site plan. They may decide that 3 stories is too much for the area. There are a lot of things that'll come out of it. It's a long, long process. Also, the Long Range Planning Committee, which I sit as liaison to, looked at it in light of the comprehensive plan. And when you read the comprehensive plan, which was approved by the voters of the town of Scarborough, it speaks to increasing density in the town and village center areas in order to maintain and retain more open space in Scarborough rather than have it gobbled up by parcels, not being developed or being developed out in the rural areas. And there definitely is a need for apartment living for people who have fairly good means. I hear some of the concerns about, criminal activity and that kind of thing. And this is not the kind of apartment complex that's being proposed. Absolutely nothing definite, but certainly I don't think that the St. Clair Group nor the Risbearers would have spent as much money as they have so far on these concept plans if those concepts weren't pretty well worked in their mind as to, the way in which they're going to lean. So, I hear the concerns, I understand the concerns, but it's my responsibility as a councilor to look at Scarborough and how it's growing and whether it can grow appropriately. Certainly, I want the planning board to do their job when they come to the site plan review. I want them to stringently look at lighting, and I want them to look at buffers and improve the buffers. I got no buffers in my area. I have white light all night long because people like to leave their outdoor lights on and those kinds of things. But all of the concerns that I think that I've heard expressed, and I will also note for the records, we had several emails from residents that live over in the area, and we'll take those into the record as well. But everything that I'm hearing are not things that cannot be worked on, and I think that the plan, as I've heard it to this point, understands that they've got a lot of hurdles to jump before they're going to get absolute approval of any site plan. And I think they, in my experience with watching them perform over the years, they are very, very sensitive to buffers and neighborhoods and lighting and those kinds of things. And if it's not remedied, certainly, we get back to it. There was an issue with the Gosnell House where the lighting was affecting the neighborhood, and steps were taken to shield that lighting and, so that the neighbors weren't affected by it. So there, even after a project is completed, there is recourse for the town to make sure that people are adhering to the standards and the stipulations that were handed out as a site plan review. So with that, certainly my vote, I'm going to vote in favor of the zone change, and I will watch with due diligence, the planning board review of the site plan to make sure that the vested interest of the public is also entertained full-fledged when it happens. So, any other comments? Councilor Benedict?
Yes, I just had one that I wanted to add. The purpose of this is only a zoning change. The purpose of this is not a building permit or anything of that nature. As Judy said, this is just the beginning of it, and that people will be watching out. Everybody will be keeping one eye open to make sure that it's done to the best of the ability for everyone to appreciate. Personally, I would love nothing better than when the project is completed for the same bunch of people to come back in and say, that's not so bad, it seems to be working out okay. Because if it doesn't happen that way, and you have bona fide complaints, not criticism, but complaints, we have to act on them. And this whole thing is work in motion. So I hope that you understand where